Welcome. I'm really glad you're here. Today I'd like to have a conversation about something I hear from parents and carers almost every week. James, my teenager just doesn't talk to me anymore. Maybe that sounds familiar. Perhaps you're used to them telling you everything. Now you ask how school was, and they say fine. How are your friends? Good. And before you know it, they're back in the room with the door half closed. For many parents, that hurts, and rightly so. And it can often look like somehow you've lost that close relationship that you once had. But here's something I hope brings you just that little bit of peace. Often your teenager hasn't stopped loving you. They haven't suddenly decided that you don't matter. No. Something much more fascinating is actually going on. During adolescence, the brain goes through one of the biggest periods of development since early childhood. The parts of the brain involved in emotions, identity, belonging, and social acceptance become incredibly active. And at the same time, the areas responsible for planning, perspective, and emotional regulation are still being developed. This means teenagers often experience emotions much more intensely than adults realise. Now imagine sharing something vulnerable. Perhaps they failed a test, they made a mistake, had an argument with a friend, or they're feeling a bit overwhelmed. If every conversation immediately becomes advice, or questions, solutions, or worry, the brain learns something. Talking makes life harder. So next time, it shares less. Not because it doesn't trust you, but because it's trying to protect itself from feeling overwhelmed. One of the greatest gifts we can offer teenagers isn't always the perfect advice. It's emotional safety. Sometimes that sounds like, honey, that sounds really hard. Tell me more. I'm glad you told me. Now notice, none of these sentences try to fix anything. They simply communicate, you're safe here. Interestingly, when people feel emotionally safe, they're actually more likely to become open to guidance later. Connection almost always comes before influence. If you're listening today and you've been wondering whether you have failed as a parent, don't try to carry that burden alone. Every relationship goes through seasons. Teenagers naturally begin stepping towards independence. Your role isn't disappearing, it's changing. And sometimes the smallest shifts create the biggest openings. So here's one gentle invitation for you today. The next time your teenager tells you something, pause, take a breath, and instead of solving it, become curious. Ask one more question. Listen a little bit longer. Let them finish. Because sometimes what our teenagers need most isn't another answer. It's the experience of feeling completely seen, heard, valued, and appreciated. Thank you so much for being here. If this conversation helped you just understand your teenager a little bit differently, I hope you'll join me for the next conversation. Until next time, take gentle care of yourself and each other.